3 months ago, my grandmother Dorothy passed away. She left me everything she had because I was the only grandchild who actually cared for her during her final years. I thought my wife Megan would be happy for us. After 7 years of marriage, I believed we shared everything. But the moment she learned exactly how much I inherited, something shifted behind her eyes. I never imagined the woman I loved would give me an ultimatum about money. I never thought she would threaten to leave unless I handed over what my grandmother trusted me to protect. Before I share how I protected everything, my grandmother left me drop a comment telling me where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you believe money should never destroy love. Now let me tell you what happened when my wife showed her true colors. I met Megan 9 years ago at a birthday party for a coworker. She was working at a small marketing agency back then, full of ambition and dreams. I remember she wore a simple blue dress and laughed at my terrible jokes. That first impression stuck with me. She seemed intelligent, funny, and most importantly, independent. She did not need anyone to take care of her. She chose to be with people because she wanted to, not because she had to. Our first dates were nothing fancy. We watched movies at the cheap theater downtown. We walked through the park near my apartment when the weather was nice. We cooked dinner together at my place because neither of us had much money to spend on restaurants. I was a software engineer at a mid-sized company, making a decent salary but certainly not wealthy. What struck me most during those early months was that Megan never once asked about my finances. She never questioned how much I made or what my savings looked like. That made me believe she loved me for who I was, not for what I could provide. After 2 years of dating, I proposed. She said yes without hesitation. We had a simple wedding, just close family and friends at a local venue. No extravagant honeymoon, just a week at a cabin by the lake. It was perfect because it was ours. Our married life settled into a comfortable rhythm. We were not rich, but we had enough. We bought a small house in the suburbs with a 30-year mortgage. The payments were manageable with both our incomes. Megan climbed the ladder at her company and eventually became a senior account manager. I also grew in my career, becoming a team lead for my development group. We made a good team, or so I thought. We never had children. Megan always said she wanted to focus on her career first. Maybe later, she would say. Maybe when we are more stable. I accepted this because I respected her goals. I never pushed the issue. Looking back, I wonder if she always had one foot out the door, waiting for something better to come along. One thing we agreed on early in our marriage was keeping our finances somewhat separate. We each had our own accounts and one joint account for household expenses. This arrangement worked well for us. There was no fighting about who spent what. We trusted each other. At least I trusted her. Now let me tell you about my grandmother Dorothy. She became a widow when I was 12 years old. My grandfather was a successful businessman who left her a substantial estate when he passed. But Grandma Dorothy was not the type to spend lavishly. She lived alone in her modest house, saved diligently, and invested wisely for 3 decades. She watched her money grow while living simply. I was her favorite grandchild, though she never said it out loud. The truth was in her actions. I was the only one who visited her regularly. I drove her to doctor appointments. I called her every Sunday without fail. My cousins only showed up when they needed money, or when they thought she might be close to the end. She saw through them easily. Grandma Dorothy once told me something I will never forget. She said, "Nick, you are the only one who loves me for me, not for my money. That means more than you will ever know." Those words stayed with me. During her last 3 years, her heart condition worsened. I spent even more time with her, sometimes staying overnight to make sure she was okay. Megan rarely joined me on these visits. She always had an excuse: a meeting with a client, a deadline at work, a headache. I did not push her, because I thought she just did not have the same connection with my grandmother. I understood that. Grandma Dorothy passed away peacefully in her sleep. The doctor said her heart simply gave out. I was devastated, but also relieved that she did not suffer. She was 87 years old and had lived a full life. I missed her terribly, but I knew she was at peace. 2 weeks after the funeral, I sat in a lawyer's office for the reading of the will. Grandma Dorothy left me everything. The total came to $1,200,000 in cash and investments, plus her house valued at $400,000. Altogether, I inherited approximately $1,600,000. My cousins were furious. They accused me of manipulating Grandma Dorothy in her final years. They threatened to contest the will, but the document was ironclad. My grandmother had updated it just 18 months before her death with 2 witnesses and full mental capacity evaluation. There was nothing they could do. I decided to sell the house. Too many memories, and it needed repairs I did not have time to oversee. After the sale, I transferred all the money into a separate investment account under my name only. My lawyer at the time advised me to keep inherited assets separate from marital property. This was standard advice, and I followed it without thinking much about the implications. I did not hide the inheritance from Megan. That same week, I told her about the will and the total amount. I expected her to be happy for us, maybe even suggest we take a nice vacation or pay off the mortgage early. Instead, her first question caught me off guard. "So how much do we have now?" she asked. I noticed her choice of words. "We," not "you." "We." I explained that I planned to invest most of it for our future. "Maybe early retirement," I said. "Maybe college funds for children we might have someday. Maybe a safety net for emergencies." Megan nodded, but something flickered in her expression. Disappointment, maybe, or calculation. I could not tell. Over the next few days, Megan started dropping suggestions. She mentioned that our house was getting old. Would it not be nice to upgrade to a bigger place in a better neighborhood? She pointed out that her car was 5 years old. A new luxury sedan would be more reliable. She pulled up travel websites showing European vacation packages. Would it not be romantic to spend 3 weeks in Italy and France? I gently explained that I wanted to invest the money for long-term growth. Spending large chunks of it now would defeat the purpose of building generational wealth. Megan seemed to accept my reasoning, but her disappointment was obvious. She grew quieter over dinner. She scrolled through her phone more often. The warmth between us cooled by a few degrees. 1 week after I told her about the inheritance, Megan asked me directly why I had not added her name to the investment account. Her tone was casual, but her eyes were sharp. "It is inherited money," I explained. "Legally, it is considered separate property. Keeping it in my name protects it." Protects it from what, she asked. From me, I tried to reassure her that it was not about trust. It was about legal clarity. If something happened to me, the money would go to her anyway. But keeping it separate was simply smart financial planning. Megan did not argue further that night. She just went to bed early, saying she had a headache. The air between us felt different after that conversation. Something had shifted, and I could not put it back in place. In the weeks that followed, I noticed changes in Megan's spending habits. Our joint credit card bill nearly tripled. Designer handbags appeared in our closet. Expensive dresses hung in her wardrobe with tags still attached. When I questioned the spending, her response stung. "You have all that money sitting there," she said. "What difference does a few thousand make?" I tried to explain that the inheritance was invested for our future, not for impulse purchases. But Megan waved off my concerns. She accused me of being cheap. She said I had changed since getting the money. She claimed I was keeping score. Our arguments became more frequent. Small disagreements turned into cold silences. Megan started coming home late from work, always with an excuse about client dinners or project deadlines. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe that 7 years of marriage meant something. Then my cousin Paul called. He and I were not particularly close, but he had always been honest with me. He said he heard through a mutual acquaintance that Megan had been asking around about divorce laws, specifically about how assets get divided in our state. I dismissed his warning. Paul was probably jealous about the inheritance, I told myself. He was trying to cause trouble because he did not get anything from Grandma Dorothy. I thanked him for his concern and hung up. But his words planted a seed of doubt that would not stop growing. 3 weeks after learning about the inheritance, Megan sat me down for what she called a serious conversation. Her face was calm, almost rehearsed. She spoke slowly, choosing each word carefully. "I need you to add my name to the inheritance account," she said. This is about fairness in our marriage. We are partners. We should share everything equally. I started to explain again about separate property and legal protection. She cut me off. If you do not do this, she said, I will take it as a sign that you do not trust me, that you never really saw me as your equal partner, and I will have to seriously reconsider our relationship. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. This was an ultimatum. My wife of 7 years was threatening to leave me unless I handed over control of my grandmother's legacy. Megan continued. She said she had already consulted with a lawyer. In a divorce, she claimed she would be entitled to half of all marital assets. But she did not want it to come to that. She gave me 1 week to decide. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The woman beside me suddenly felt like a stranger. I replayed our entire relationship in my mind, searching for signs I might have missed. Had she always been waiting for a payday? Or had the money simply revealed something that was always there, hidden beneath the surface? I decided I needed facts before making any decisions. Blind trust had gotten me into this situation. Only clear evidence would help me find a way out. I started with our phone records. The bill showed hundreds of text messages to a number I did not recognize. The messages had started about 2 months ago, right around the time Megan began staying late at work. My stomach turned as I scrolled through the call log. Late-night calls lasting over an hour. Morning texts sent before she even got out of bed beside me. I hired a private investigator. It cost me $2,000, but I needed to know the truth. After 1 week of surveillance, the investigator delivered his report. Megan had been meeting a man named Derek at least 10 times in the past month. Derek worked at her company. The photos showed them having intimate dinners at restaurants across town. One set of images showed them entering a hotel together and leaving 3 hours later. The pain was immense, but so was the clarity. Now I understood everything. Megan was not just after my inheritance because she felt entitled to it as my wife. She was planning to leave me for Derek. The money was her exit strategy. She wanted to take as much as possible on her way out the door. I called my old college friend Kevin the next morning. He had become a financial attorney specializing in asset protection and estate planning. I told him everything: the inheritance, the ultimatum, the affair. He listened without interrupting. Kevin explained my situation carefully. Under our state law, inherited assets are considered separate property as long as they are never commingled with marital funds. Because I had kept the inheritance in a separate account and never used it for household expenses, the money remained legally mine. However, Kevin warned me that Megan's lawyer might argue that by not sharing the money during the marriage, I had already demonstrated intent to keep it separate. This could work in my favor, but it could also lead to lengthy court battles. Then Kevin offered a more permanent solution. He suggested I transfer the inheritance into an irrevocable trust. This type of trust would remove the assets from my personal ownership entirely. The trust would have a spendthrift clause specifically excluding any spouse, current or future, from ever having a claim to the funds. The only beneficiaries would be myself and any biological children I might have someday. I asked if this was legal. Kevin assured me it was completely legitimate. People use these trusts all the time to protect family wealth from creditors, lawsuits, and yes, divorces. The key was timing. The trust had to be established before Megan filed for divorce. Otherwise, it could be challenged as fraudulent transfer. I signed the paperwork within 3 days. Kevin expedited everything. The trust was funded and finalized on a Thursday afternoon. By Friday morning, the $1,600,000 no longer belonged to me personally. It belonged to the trust which I controlled as trustee, but could not access freely without meeting specific conditions. Exactly 1 week after her ultimatum, Megan announced that she had retained a divorce lawyer named Sandra. She seemed confident, almost smug. Her exact words were, "My lawyer says I am entitled to a fair share of everything, including the inheritance since you have benefited from it during our marriage." I did not argue. I did not beg. I simply said, "All right, I will see you in court." Megan looked surprised by my calm demeanor. She had expected tears, anger, maybe even surrender. Instead, she got nothing. She packed her bags that weekend and moved in with a friend. I later learned the friend was actually Derek. For the first time in weeks, I had my house to myself. The silence was deafening at first. Then, it became peaceful. I finally had space to think clearly about the past 7 years. So many warning signs I had ignored because I wanted to believe in the life we had built together. The mediation meeting took place 6 weeks later at a neutral attorney's office downtown. Megan arrived with Sandra, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit. Megan wore a confident smile like she had already won. I arrived with Kevin. We shook hands politely and took our seats across the conference table. Sandra opened the discussion. She slid a document across the table, outlining Megan's demands. "My client is seeking an equitable division of marital assets," she said. "This includes the inheritance of approximately $1,600,000, which we believe should be considered marital property due to the timing and circumstances." Kevin smiled politely and pulled out his own folder. "I'm afraid there has been a misunderstanding," he said. "The inheritance in question was transferred into an irrevocable trust 3 weeks before your client filed for divorce." He slid a copy of the trust document across the table. Sandra picked it up and began reading. I watched her expression change from confidence to confusion to something close to disbelief. Kevin continued. "The trust contains a spendthrift provision that specifically excludes any current or future spouse from beneficiary status. The assets are no longer part of my client's personal estate. Therefore, they cannot be considered in any division of marital property." Megan grabbed the document from Sandra. Her eyes scanned the pages frantically. "He cannot do this," she said, her voice rising. "This is my money too. We were married. I have rights." Kevin remained calm. "The inheritance was always separate property. It was never commingled with marital funds. My client followed all applicable laws. The trust is valid and enforceable." I reached into my folder and pulled out the private investigator's report. I placed the photographs on the table. Megan at dinner with Derek. Megan entering the hotel with Derek. Megan leaving the hotel with Derek. Additionally, I said quietly, "I have evidence of my wife's extramarital affair." This may be relevant to discussions of alimony and asset division. The room went silent. Megan stared at the photos like she was seeing ghosts. Sandra closed her eyes and took a deep breath. After a long pause, Sandra spoke to Megan privately in the corner. When they returned, Sandra's tone had changed completely. "My client is willing to accept a division of actual marital assets only," she said. "We will not pursue claims to the trust." The negotiation was brief after that. Megan received her share of our home equity after the remaining mortgage was paid off plus half of our joint savings account. The total came to approximately $80,000. She did not get a single cent of my grandmother's inheritance. As we left the conference room, Megan grabbed my arm. Her eyes were red. "You planned this all along," she hissed. "You set me up." I looked at her calmly. "No," I said. "I protected myself. There is a difference." The divorce was finalized 4 months later. I kept the house, though I considered selling it. Too many memories lived in those walls. Some good, mostly now tainted by what I knew. Megan moved in with Derek immediately after the mediation. I heard through mutual friends that their relationship imploded within 6 months. Apparently, Derek was not interested in a woman who came with $80,000 in debt from legal fees and lifestyle adjustments. He wanted a fresh start, not someone else's baggage. I did not feel joy at hearing this news. I did not feel vindicated or satisfied. I just felt empty. 7 years of my life gone. A woman I thought I knew revealed as a stranger. The first 3 months after the divorce were brutal. I went through the motions at work, but my heart was not in it. I stopped going out. I stopped answering calls. I questioned everything about myself. Was I too trusting? Too naive? Did I push her toward someone else by not sharing the inheritance freely? My friend Marcus refused to let me wallow. He showed up at my door one Saturday morning and practically dragged me to the gym. He made me lift weights until my arms burned. He made me run until my lungs screamed. Physical exhaustion replaced emotional numbness. It was a start. I also began seeing a therapist, a middle-aged man named Dr. Patterson, who listened more than he talked. He helped me understand that Megan's choices were not my fault. I could not control her actions, only my responses. He taught me to separate my self-worth from the failure of my marriage. 6 months after the divorce, I established the Dorothy Williams Memorial Scholarship Fund. I used a portion of the trust earnings to provide college scholarships for first-generation students studying nursing, which was my grandmother's profession before she married my grandfather. It felt right. It gave her legacy meaning beyond just numbers in an account. Work became my sanctuary again. I threw myself into projects, earned a promotion, started mentoring younger engineers. Purpose returned slowly like sunlight after a long storm. About a year after everything ended, I enrolled in a cooking class at the community center. I figured I should learn to feed myself properly instead of surviving on takeout. That is where I met Amanda. She was a pediatric nurse with kind eyes and a quiet laugh. We started talking over burnt risotto and overcooked pasta. Nothing romantic at first, just two people learning something new together. Eventually, we started meeting for coffee outside of class, then dinner, then weekend hikes. I took things slowly this time. I set boundaries from the beginning. I told her about my past, about the inheritance, about the trust. She listened without judgment. Protecting yourself is not the same as shutting people out, Amanda said one evening. Anyone who cannot understand that does not deserve your trust in the first place. I am not sure where things will go with Amanda. I am not rushing anything. But for the first time in a long while, I feel hope without fear attached to it. My grandmother Dorothy taught me many things over the years. How to be patient, how to listen, how to value people for who they are, not what they have. But her final lesson came after she was gone. She taught me that protecting yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. She worked her whole life to build something meaningful, and she trusted me to honor that. I will never let anyone use an ultimatum to take what I have worked to protect, not because I am greedy or cold, but because I have finally learned the difference between sharing your life with someone and surrendering your security to someone. If someone truly loves you, they will never make you choose between protecting yourself and keeping them. And if they do well, you already have your answer. The question is whether you are brave enough to see it. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced an ultimatum from someone you trusted? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and I believe we all learn from each other's experiences. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button so more people can find it. Subscribe to this channel if you want more real stories about life, love, and the hard lessons we learn along the way. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, share this video with them. Sometimes the right story at the right time can change everything. Thank you for watching and for being part of this community. I wish you the wisdom to recognize your worth, the courage to protect what matters, and the peace that comes from knowing you made the right choice. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.